What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of The Tuesday Show, brought to you by Blue Light Media. My name's Mikhail, and today we're going to be talking about Instagram success and measuring content beyond likes and comments. Before we get started today, today's episode is actually brought to you by Nutravenience, a plant-based meal delivery service based in Costa Mesa, California, delivering to anybody in Orange County delicious vegan and plant-based meals that help trim you down, and they're absolutely delicious. Never really thought I'd be a huge proponent of plant-based foods, but this stuff's pretty good. Anyways, on to the show today. Even when we're talking to bigger brands are still looking at likes and comments as the primary way that they're measuring the success of their content on Instagram. And although that this is a great measure, it's not very deep. When we took a poll, it actually showed that 50% of people will actually like posts just because of the brand that it's coming from, and the other 50% will like it because of the actual content itself. So it's not a really good measure of how well the content is being produced or the impact it's making because it's super split. In addition to that, if you look at the comments, sometimes, great content that's getting a lot of likes is not getting any comments at all. So that's not necessarily the best way to measure the success of a piece of content or not, simply because some pictures or some captions or whatever is being posted on Instagram simply does not warrant a comment. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna go through different ways that we can actually measure the success of Instagram content. There are multiple metrics that are available on Instagram business pages, and I do want to stress that it is on business pages, so if you are running a personal page right now, you're not going to be able to see the same things. Of course, we can see the likes, we can see the comments, and if you swipe up or click insights on a particular post, you can also see shares, you can see how many people have actually saved the content as well, and if you swipe up one more time, you can actually see how many impressions that you're getting also. Now, with the new creator pages that were just released, you can also see some deeper audience insights, like how many people have followed and unfollowed you in a certain span of time. Now, there isn't a lot of context to that data, unfortunately. It doesn't say things like, how long somebody was following you before they unfollowed you. So in our opinion, it's kind of useless. But what we're going to focus on today is the impressions, the shares, and the saves. One of the metrics that we like to assess are the impression breakdowns. So if you swipe up on your content after you click insights, you can actually see how many impressions a piece of content is getting in different categories. There's in feed, there's gonna be home, there's gonna be other, and the other one is hashtags. And hashtags is really what we wanna dive deep in today, because people are kind of like straying away from the hashtag strategy, but we found that it's actually very important and can help increase your organic reach significantly. One of the things that we want to talk about is measuring the effectiveness of hashtags. Hashtags can be a very powerful tool that can help make sure that your content is being seen by more people than the ones that are just following you. Now, when you click insights and you swipe up, sometimes you'll notice that you're not getting a lot of reach on your hashtags or a lot of impressions on your hashtags. This could mean that it's time to actually break up and create a new group of hashtags, because Instagram might think that you're kind of trying to spam or attack a certain category, but also it could mean that your content isn't matching the hashtags that you're actually choosing. Now, you should always shoot to consistently have more people see you via hashtags than just the ones that are seeing in your feed. As you know, Instagram's algorithm is not letting you be seen by everybody that's following you at the same time unless they're consistently interacting with you. So using the correct hashtags will help categorize you outside of that and be seen by more people consistently. Now, before we move on from hashtags, I want to leave you with a couple hashtag tips that are going to help increase your reach and engagement. Of course, you want to be using 20 to 30 hashtags per post. And I know that that seems a lot, and if you're worried about the aesthetic of your captions, just put it in the first comment. In fact, we've actually seen that hashtags in the first comment perform better than the ones that are in the captions, despite what people might tell you. And of course, that's as of today. Things might change in the future. Now, you want to make sure that you're using hashtags, different groupings of hashtags daily. And again, the reason being is because if we continuously use the same hashtags for your content, Instagram might think that you're trying to spam that category and thus decrease how many people are seeing your posts within those categories altogether. In fact, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, you might not get indexed in hashtags at all. You want to use hashtags that are relevant to your post as well. So if you're posting pictures of food, don't put travel photography on there or outfit of the day. Just because those hashtags are getting a lot of engagement doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get that same engagement if your post doesn't actually match with what you're categorizing it under. When we're choosing hashtags, we also want to use the ones that have 50,000 to 250,000 posts associated with that particular category. And of course, you can go up and down a little bit. Now, the reason being is because within that range, we believe that you actually have a better chance of being seen under that hashtag as opposed to the ones that have like 2 million posts associated with it. What that means is too many people are using that, so you're not going to stay up on the most recent posts as long and give your content the chance to be seen, right? Now, with that being said, pick one or two ones that have like 1 million posts or 2 million posts with it. You do have a chance of going viral. Now, lastly, what you want to do when you're choosing hashtags is be sure to use ones that people might actually be following, right? So you don't want to choose hashtags that are branded for one, even though it might have a lot of posts, but you want to choose ones that, people might be looking up every day. The easy ones for us to kind of point out right now are the ones that have to do with like inspirational quotes or motivational memes, anything like that. Those are the type of hashtags that people might follow. Of course, people might follow things like vegan recipes, daily workouts, things like this. So there are things that people will follow on a daily basis, and you can actually see that when you're searching for hashtags, and that'll allow you to be seen more frequently and get more reach with every tag that you use. The next metric we want to talk about, or metrics that we want to talk about, are the shares and saves. And although you might not be able to see that on its surface, it's still a very important way to measure the impact of your content. We've noticed that as Instagram kind of grows and more people are on the platform, people become more picky about what they're liking, about what they're following, so it becomes a lot more difficult to create engagement that's public on the platform. So people are reverting to saves, they're reverting to shares to show that they actually care about a piece of content. The saves one is the one that we find very interesting because that means that people are actually going back to that content later on. We've noticed a significant correlation between saves and shares and organic reach, which makes a lot of sense because there's more interaction with that content. And even though it's not public, Instagram will probably pick up on the fact that, this is resonating well with a certain audience and it's going to want to push it up in more feeds. We also found that shares specifically will actually drive more content to your actual page and the actual content. And that makes a lot of sense. When somebody actually shares a piece of content, it's going to their Instagram story, and anybody else that views that story might click on the post and thus take you back to the profile page. So again, it's actually really important to shoot for more shares and saves, and you can actually shape your content in a way to actually create this more often. All right, let's talk about some considerations when creating and publishing content. First of all, what do you want your content to do? You should start creating your content based around whether or not you want it to be shared more often, whether you want to create engagement in the captions, or whether or not you want saves. Each piece of content is going to do something different. For example, if you create an inspirational meme of any sort, or even a funny meme, there's a bigger chance that it's actually going to be shared than a photo of yourself or a piece of product. Most likely, when you put out a piece of content that shows a picture of a product or a person, it's not going to get shared as often as a quote of some sort. Take into consideration that not all content deserves a comment. So if you are looking for comments to be a measure of how impactful your content is, make sure that you're using like captions that actually get people to read and spark conversation, or a photo that might actually intrigue somebody to ask a question or something like that. Sometimes somebody will just like something and save something and never leave a comment at all. In fact, we've seen content that gets hundreds of shares and hundreds of saves, but 2 or 3 comments, and that's very common, especially if there's no reason for somebody to talk about it at all. Now, as we were saying before, is your content actually shareable? This is a great way for more people to see your content that don't necessarily follow you, but as we mentioned before, memes, quotes, things like this, you're probably gonna get more shares out of that than you are a photo of products or anything like that. Now, take into consideration that if you do create a video that you want shared, that you should probably put it in meme format anyways, or like a quote card format anyways, because when it is shared, the video does not actually play from an Instagram post, only on stories. As you can see, there are many ways that you can gauge the impact of your content far beyond likes and comments. Right? So it's important to understand that there are different metrics that will actually show, like, is our content even working well at all? So we have a couple final tips for you, and I'm gonna read off this piece of paper because it's actually a lot. One of the things that you wanna consider is if you are looking to get more shares out of your content, be sure to use light branding. Something that we've noticed is that the more branding there is on a piece of content, the less likely people are to share it. So what I've tried personally is taking tweets that I used to just put as a meme, really to save a lot of time, and that was performing well for a lot of people in my category. I was taking out my name and my photo out of it completely, and it gets shared tons more. And we've noticed this on different pieces of content too for different brands that we're working with. The smaller the logos are and the lighter the branding actually is, the more likely it is to get shared on somebody's Instagram stories. We also found that long form captions actually get indexed really well on Instagram. So what we mean by long form is those microblogs. You'll see a lot of people that are actually using long form captions. They might be Instagram influencers, or it might be a product that is explaining a little bit more about that brand's mission. Now, the great thing about this is long form captions actually seem to spark more conversation than just a short form one, right? So consider using these if you do actually want to start a conversation in the comments and start engaging with your audience that way. Although videos are favored on Instagram discovery and it's a great way to drive new traffic to your page, make sure that you're using a great thumbnail with your video at all times. And the reason being is because if it does get shared, as we mentioned earlier, the video does not play. So you want to make sure that when it gets shared to somebody's stories, that it's very clear what you're trying to communicate in that video. I really hope Instagram doesn't see this, because we've actually noticed a big correlation between promoting an Instagram post from Instagram, like with Instagram ads, and the organic reach being decreased. So to clarify, we've noticed that if somebody actually does use the promote feature on Instagram, that later on their organic reach is actually going to get crunched a little bit. And our theory is that they want you to continue using that feature on Instagram. So if you do want to use Instagram ads, we recommend to actually just go to your Facebook ads manager and create the Instagram ad that way, so that you're not messing with your actual profile. Of course, we don't have too much data to support this, but everybody's saying it, we've noticed it ourselves, so there might be some truth to it. And lastly, shoot for deep engagement with every single post. We've noticed that the more interactions that a piece of content gets, the more reach it actually gets in every single category under the impression breakdown, right? Which obviously makes a lot more sense, and we know that this is something that is relatively common knowledge now, but we also have seen that many brands are really just mailing in their content and they're using a pretty picture without actually trying to spark any sort of conversation. The more that we do that, not only helps amplify the identity of the brand, but it also helps increase its reach, thus getting more people and more eyeballs to your profile. That's it for this episode of the Tuesday Show on measuring Instagram performance beyond likes and comments. We hope you really enjoyed this episode. I know we enjoyed creating it. Remember, no matter what you do, be sure to put your heart into it, and we'll see you next week.